Ursula, first of all, let me thank you very much for the morning presentation. I'm still under impression, and I believe everybody who was present during Ursula's speech is as well. I think you are a living proof that you don't have to be a president of a state or a Nobel Prize winner to actually change the world.
Thank you so much.
But, you know, I have to confess, I'm also a little bit shocked or confused because I'm coming to this Women in Tech career talks, and I'm expecting here to hear a lot about, I know, cloud computing, data engineering, AI, machine learning, blockchain, and so on and so forth. And all I get to hear is about life journeys, soft skills, and experiences, and this and that. How is it, Ursula? What do you think? What actually does it take? What truly matters to get through the ranks in the tech careers?
So I believe in storytelling. So that is one of the things that I actually see that works, and also being human. So as you have heard throughout the day, it's not about just the IQ. So we can find fantastically brilliant people that don't have an EQ, or it's a very low EQ, and they can't succeed in business because you also have to have the emotional side. So I would say, somebody asked me once, like, if you would have the most brilliant brain in a chair and they want to have a job with you, but they have no EQ, or you have the most highest EQ, and maybe there are some lack of skills at the moment, which one would you hire? I would always take EQ over IQ. Skills can be taught, but there are certain things that have to be built in.
Yeah, thank you for that. That reminds me, the test I'm usually having with my RIGA Business School students, I used to ask them, so what do you think, what's the percentage of IQ which is actually getting for you a successful career as a manager, as a leader? And they always get it wrong. They always aim for too high of IQ, and then it turns out that it's EQ, which is actually securing your career success.
Yeah, and I think it's very often we get questions like, okay, you have this career and you got into a certain point, like you must be, with everything you must be brilliant, you have the highest IQ, but also like think about the reliability, think about like how do you treat other people and employees, and how do you build a team, because you can't be successful on your own, so you need a team around you. So do people want to work with you, together with you?
Yeah. Would you maybe remind us again on this? You mentioned in the morning session that there were those 3 core strengths of yours, or core values. So, and then how important that concept is for anybody to realize what's their key strengths is.
Yeah, because if you think about what you're doing day in, day out, so regardless of what you're doing for your business, you might have multiple things that you're doing and very busy. And then if somebody asks, like, why are we paying you? Like, what is the skill set that you're bringing? And when you start looking at what do you do day in and day out, so for example, I already very early on found out that I'm skilled at problem solving, so seeing connections and understanding like how things will turn into or fall into when we see what's happening in the future. So meaning that there's certain logic behind the technology decisions. And that is one of my core strengths. So can you take those strengths and understand like the 3 key messages? How do you communicate your value and say, hey, I need a salary of X, Y, and Z because these are my skills. And the better you get at it, the more maturity you will have and more opportunities to grow your career.
Thank you. But then talking about those skill sets and then developing those, we touched upon this a little bit yesterday when we met, and there is still this dilemma. So whose responsibility is it to develop my skills? So what's my role in that, and then what's organizational role? And I personally believe, and I share that with you, that I rather believe in that like kind of initiative and ownership of the development has to remain on individual side, and then there is something that organization has to still, of course, to provide, to facilitate that growth and learning. But what's your take on this? How you are approaching this when you work with your team, for example, your team's development, and then maybe also a few examples from how your organization does it?
Yeah, so I am a strong believer in the fact that if you look at your career, very often you hear people saying like, I don't get the opportunities to, let's say, get the next step or something. Then you ask yourself like, whose career is it? So you have to take ownership of your own career. That doesn't mean that the organization doesn't have the responsibility to develop you. So for example, if you look at having resources, having time, having money to take part in trainings, of course, that's the organizational responsibility. But you owning your career and understanding what are your strengths, where do you want to go, and of course, one thing that I noticed throughout my career is stop and ask yourself, why? So why are you getting to a point like let's say you want to become a manager. Why do you want to become a manager? I actually fell into a trap very early on in my career that I wanted to be leader, director, something. And then you get the title and you look at the title and I'm like, that's not me at that moment in time. So own your career, own your journey, and also understand that you can make mistakes. I also believe that we need to show example. So when we have teams and maybe even junior teams, is that whatever you demand as a manager or let's say a leader of the team, show that you're doing and putting in the work. So we talk about a process of sharpening the saw, and sharpening the saw means that you will continuously improve yourself. So you will put in the hours and you work towards those goals, and it's a daily practice. And I mean, sometimes it means that you don't have the time to put on the TV and look at what's happening there, your favorite soap story. You will actually put in the time to develop your career. And the reason we do it daily is the fact that there's no compression algorithm for practice and continuous efforts, because you can't compact it. You can't make it like all of a sudden take the leap. So it has to be daily.
Yeah, but then you still have some sort of the pushing mechanisms from the organization side, which kind of demands people to learn. Right.
Yeah, so when we hire, so if you look at our hiring cycle, we actually have quite different hiring cycles. So we hire and we estimate, of course, on which level the person is joining us from. And in order to, let's say, take the next step, so let's say I'm progressing toward my next goal, we also look at the progress, what's happening, and we do a lot of writing. So we also explain, what am I doing that is on the next level? So what is my role right now that I have joined the organization from, and what is the next level? If there's enough written proof that yes, you're on the next level, there's an evidence on there, numbers, etc., you will get your next step. So we have that way of pushing. As a technology vendor, we use a lot of gamification. For example, we do all kinds of immersion days, game days. We do certificates. So if you look at the certification cycle, so we are quite competitive. So we also do that and gamify that a bit as a process.
Do you also somehow seek to identify that thirst for development, that growth potential when you hire people?
Yeah, so we do, and there's one thing that we mention, and people often confuse this. We say that each hire, every hire that we do, is a bit better than the hire before that. So meaning that we will raise the bar continuously. And then somebody thinks like, oh my God, there's an organization full of brilliant people and they want to hire only people who are better than them. Like I will never get there. It's about having a certain skill set, knowing your skill set and saying, this is what I do, this is what I'm really good at, on that level that you're joining the organization from, and also wanting to improve yourself and taking the ownership of your own career.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more with you. But then there's another topic that I still wanted to address with you, which is the topic of diversity. And I know that you have a lot of experience and also a lot of passion in driving that topic forward. And that's not very simple. It's sort of a buzzword a little bit these days in the world. Yet I also personally struggle a little bit with this notion of whether we do have to have some sort of the quotas, you know, for women, for men, for various other types of diversity. We spoke neurodiversity, for example, yesterday, sexual diversities, religious, cultural, and then so on and so forth. Sort of my confidence always has been that I always have to look for the best fitting candidate, irrespective of anything else. But there might be a little bit of trap in that as well. So what's your view on that, and how, in your experience, this can be solved?
So I can share a bit what we are doing, like the processes that we are using, and also like why we are using them. And I fully agree when you say that, you know, you hear ID&E and diversity, inclusion, equity, and it's a nice, you know, a lot of words. But what does it mean? And let's take the most jaded CEO of a company that says, what's in it for me? Like, why should I do it? Because if it's just marketing, then it's fluff. So my thought process on the fact that why we build very diverse teams. So we have cultural diversity, we have a lot of age range, we have like different cultural backgrounds, sexual orientation, we have all of it, you name it, it's there. So the reasoning for me is the fact that when we bring different people and different angles of thinking, we have the diversity of thought. And that means that we will build better products. And you can kind of turn it both sides around. So you can look at offering better products, but also having less risk. So think about building a product that would be, let's say, a car. If you don't test it and think about the different applications of different body sizes, different like things that could affect safety of that car, that vehicle, that might mean that it's dangerous for some people. So often it happens that the cars and the safety systems are dangerous for women because those systems are tested on men. So having that diversity of thought and understanding means that we will build better products and we have less risk. But then you might have that question, so okay, it can impact your revenue, it can impact your risk. And then somebody says, so it's probably so easy that you just hire diverse candidates and you have all the possibility to do that. You don't necessarily have that, so you have to start developing also. So you have to start that early on. So that's one of the reasons we do a lot of educational stuff already in schools, very young age, so that there will be people, there will be women who will be joining the industry. So because if we don't get that inspiration and possibility, you know, then there won't be a pool of talented women coming to the industry. So we use affinity groups, and affinity groups means that it's kind of an in-group. So let's say that we have cultural communities. Let's say we have, well, Black Employee Network is a good example. LGBTQ plus Clemson, as you heard, is a kind of an in-group, so meaning that it will drive those employees to succeed in their career and be visible and be accepted and have a voice. So those are the internal mechanisms that we use. So there's a lot of tools around this.
Yeah, but one probably might say that, okay, for Amazon being so huge and with so much resources, it's so easy for you to have all those various sorts of programs. What do you think we could still do in a smaller organizations? Where to start? How to?
I have an answer that is very short, and it's very difficult to do because I've noticed that so sometimes it's also for yourself like, oh, I may not be successful always in that. So it actually starts inside yourself. So how do you look at the world and the people around you? So let's say you see somebody who is from a different cultural background, has a different kind of family. What's your reaction? Is it like, oh, that's scary? Or let's say, can you ask questions? Can you be curious and ask questions? So the only thing we can develop is ourselves. So even as a small organization, to be open to different kind of people, not have that mentality of fear. But of course, the fact is, we all have biases. Like somebody said, like if you're into ID&E, you don't have any bias. Well, guess what? We all do. And also like understanding what are your biases, how can you improve yourself? Are you afraid of something? And also talking openly about these topics with your team, like how are we as a team? Or are we hiring people that are like us from the same schools that we are? So it starts with the company culture. So you can have any kind of leadership, but the culture has to be there to support it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because the culture might be that same trap if you proceed from the belief that we are generally hiring, just for the best fit. But if the culture has somewhere in the back of their brain that the best fit is always, like the white male in their 30s,
Exactly.
then that's where you end up, right?
Exactly, and one thing that I think what makes, I would say that is the core of Amazon, is that we have shared values. So we talk about, we have leadership principles, so we talk about LPs, and when I joined Amazon, it was kind of like, interesting, like you want to talk about that when you're hiring, like, values, is it something that you really talk about daily? Yes, it is, almost in every meeting. And those leadership principles share the values between all the teams, so you can't succeed in the company if you don't share the values. And we communicate that already in the hiring process, so we talk about hiring loops, and the last hiring decision and the last loop, the last day is only about values. And that is so important that you know where you're joining.
Yeah. And you mentioned also yesterday that sometimes when we are designing those job descriptions or job ads, that we also somehow subconsciously tend to make them more sort of masculine or feminine. Could you a little bit elaborate on that one? Because that was a very interesting thought for me.
So I was thinking about this myself. So if you look at the job ad, and you look at the technology area job ads, and you have, we are seeing this coding skills, and we expect you have managerial skills, and etc. You have a long list of things. And us women tend to look at the list and go I have that one, I don't have that one, no, and that one I have. And then we go I can't apply because, of course, I don't have all of the skill sets. There is a bit of a difference how men apply. Of course, this might be a generalization, not for all the men. But very often it's yeah, I know this coding language, I know that coding language, maybe not that, but I can learn it. So there's much more flexibility in the thinking pattern. So we have a lot of imposter syndrome still of thinking that I'm not good enough, I can't apply. Why don't you take a chance and actually go and say, would you develop my skill set for those areas that I don't necessarily yet have because I'm really good at this? So we also need to write the job ads a bit differently.
Noted. We'll take in use. Ursula, I can't avoid asking you that one question at the end of our conversation. If you had to give one crucial advice for anybody in the audience here wishing to future-proof their careers, what would be that?
I would say what has been kind of the support for my career, and then also the possibility to take on those new challenges and take on those new, even when it feels risky, is that I've had so good mentors, and I've had those more experienced, trained people who want to spend their time to develop your career and sometimes give you the painful advice of don't do that, or let's say there are things that you need to know before you're taking that next step. And there has been a lot of people who has spent time on my career so that I can get to this point. So I would say it's twofold. I would say, first of all, find yourself a really good mentor. And again, if you have that imposter syndrome, I could never ask. Well, the worst thing that could happen is they say no. But they can't say yes if you don't ask. And also, it's our responsibility who has a career and a long career already to mentor. And I would challenge you to also use that time and mentor the younger generation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Truly valuable advice, I think, for all of us. And as I learned earlier, Ursula is going to be more often in Riga, so hopefully we see you around here and there every now and then.
We will, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.